This is CBS.
In our headlines this noon, an historic event is taking place across the United States right now, and it will be a while before we see one of these again, a rare partial solar eclipse. Our health and science reporter, Dr. Larry Kuttner and Bud Kraehling, are both at the university right now, where astronomers are watching an image of the eclipse. And just a reminder not to look directly at the sun or eye damage could result. We'll have complete coverage of the eclipse coming up next.
What are we looking at?
I think it's a pineapple.
Oh, it's a dole pineapple.
It's a pineapple.
Oops.
Oh, look at that.
Well, that looks good, doesn't it?
Well, that's dole for you.
Yeah. Hey, why don't we ever have any?
It's too hard to prepare.
Yeah, it looks easy.
Yeah, must be trick photography.
Real trick photography, you think?
Uh-oh.
Actual what do you think now?
Trick words?
No?
No?
Nah.
Available at all Super Value stores.
Sophisticated, uncomplicated, jungle hots, forget-me-nots, short, sassy, very classy, bold lines, pure designs, wild, daring, shoulder-bearing, flash, panache, simplicity, and how. Baby, look at us now. Look at the Simplicity pattern book at Minnesota Fabrics.
The challenge of being a reporter in the Twin Cities is that everybody is so news conscious. They're not going to settle for anything but the best. In the dozen years or so I've been covering news here, I've gotten to know the people. I think I know what they want, and they're the ones that have gotten me involved in the community. Frankly, I love it here. I think that's important to my job, and I know it's important to me.
WCCO Television welcomes Marcia Floor to its news staff.
From WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul, this is the Noon Report. With Bill Carlson, Debbie Ely, Bud Kraehling, and Tony Parker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today is a day that scientists all over the country have been waiting for. A rare partial solar eclipse is taking place right now.
And Debbie, fair skies here in our state have scientists smiling today since they won't see another partial eclipse until May of 1994. The moon started moving in front of the sun at 12 minutes after 10 this morning. Skies became a bit dim about a half hour ago when the partial eclipse reached its peak. The sun is now returning to its full size as the moon moves away. Astronomers at the University of Minnesota are using a special mirror to project an image of the eclipse onto a white sheet, since it is harmful to the eyes to watch the eclipse directly. Our health and science reporter, Dr. Larry Kuttner, joins us now from just outside Kaufman Union. Larry?
Well, you'll be happy to know, Bill, that the sun actually is coming back. You don't have to panic. In Minnesota, the eclipse covered only about 60% of the sun at its peak, and that was about 40 minutes ago. If you wanted to get a really good look at the eclipse, you had to be on the East Coast, somewhere between New Orleans, Louisiana, and Richmond, Virginia. It followed, actually, a highway going between these two. We have some pictures here from Atlanta. And this shows you what was happening. This will cover a little bit more than it was covered here. But the sun becomes rather crescent-shaped, so it looks a bit like the moon does. For several hundred University of Minnesota students and other visitors have been gathering in front of Kaufman Memorial Union at the University of Minnesota campus in Minneapolis, and they've been watching the reflection of the eclipse from a large mirror onto what looks like really a bed sheet hung out of a fourth-floor window, and they can see the shadow going across that. It's a bit of a carnival atmosphere here. People are gathered and eating and talking and sort of exchanging stories. A couple of people have homebrew devices that are like pinhole cameras that make a reflection of the eclipse, and they're watching it on sheets of paper. About a block away from here in the physics department, there are some astronomers who have a solar telescope, and they've been projecting that image onto another piece of cardboard and taking some video pictures of that and sending those video pictures around the physics department, so they have another view of that. One thing that scientists have been warning people, and you've said this before, but I think it can't be overemphasized, is if you're outside, don't look directly at the sun to watch this. What is happening is that you will get some rays that can burn your retina. They can damage your eye. And normally the brightness, the intensity of the sun will prevent you from looking long enough. As it gets a little dimmer, then you wouldn't have that automatic reflex. Bill?
Larry, you want to stand by? We'll come back to you for the next one. 1994, is it?
Yeah, it's around then. That's another partial one, and I'll wait here if you want.
Okay, thank you, Larry.
Okay.
The sale of the 400 Stinger anti-aircraft missiles to Saudi Arabia is final, and they have arrived at the destination. But the controversy over the sale of the weapons continues. And the most verbal objections are coming from Israeli officials who fear the missiles will find their way into the enemy hands. Israel's Defense Minister Moshe Ahrens will make his position clear in a meeting today with Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger. As Don McNeil reports, Ahrens is also in the midst of his own controversy.
Defense Minister Moshe Ahrens has suddenly found himself in a very uncomfortable position. He was standing no more than 50 meters from the spot where 2 Arab bus hijackers were clubbed to death after they were captured alive. It was dark, there were a number of unnecessary military and security forces milling about, and Ahrens is disclaiming any ministerial responsibility for what he and Prime Minister Shamir have called a painful deviation from normal conduct. Still, one Israeli newspaper claims that Ahrens was even closer than 50 meters to the bus shortly after the assault, and that he saw the 2 Arab men taken away alive, as these still photographs show. With a number of accusatory fingers pointing at him here in Israel, Ahrens has gone to Washington, where in turn he is expected to claim that the United States is irresponsible in selling hundreds of advanced Stinger missiles plus refueling aircraft to Saudi Arabia. The Israelis have long made the claim that the Saudis can't control the final destination of U.S. weapons, citing discovery of tons of American to Saudi material when they invaded PLO camps in Lebanon. One area that Ahrens almost certainly will keep himself and Israel away from and take no responsibility whatsoever is the potentially explosive Persian Gulf. The Iran-Iraq war, says one Western diplomat, is a war in which the best result for Israel is no result. A clear victory for either side could only mean trouble for Israel. Don McNeil, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
Iran is warning that U.S. intervention in the Gulf War would result in needless American deaths. And even the Ayatollah Khomeini is getting involved in the war. Khomeini is urging unity among the Iranian forces, saying Iran will keep on fighting the 44-month-old war. Iranian officials say U.S. shipments of aircraft and weapons will not interfere with Iran's plans to win the war against Iraq. At a mansion on Chesapeake Bay, foreign ministers from 16 NATO countries are taking time to discuss the Gulf War. Secretary of State George Shultz is the host of the meeting. He will brief the ministers today on the sale of the Stinger missiles to Saudi Arabia. Today is the final day of those NATO talks. And as President Reagan prepares for his trip to Ireland this weekend, he can't get away from talking about the Gulf War. An Irish reporter questioning the president before the trip asked Mr. Reagan about his plans for the area.
Some have asked for some military assistance in the sense of weaponry, and this is why we are sending some weapons, some Stinger weapons to them, and possibly augmenting our little squadron of tankers that are there. But they have not asked us to intervene, and certainly we have not offered to intervene.
President Reagan also talked with Irish journalists about the Olympic boycott. He says the Russians aren't coming because of the U.S. boycott in 1980 and because the Russians feared their athletes might defect to the United States. Debbie?
But, Bill, the fight to convince the Soviets to change their mind continues. The president of the International Olympic Committee, Juan Antonio Samaranch, flew to Moscow today to try to convince Foreign Minister Andrei Gromyko to reconsider. Officials say that this will be the final try to bring the Soviet athletes to the Olympics. 36 hours and counting until the contract for 6,000 registered nurses in the Twin Cities expires. The nurses and hospital representatives met yesterday, but talks have recessed until tomorrow. In the meantime, strike preparations are being made by both sides. The nurses are signing up for picket duty at 15 targeted hospitals, and hospitals which could be struck have started transferring patients. Some have even turned away emergency ambulances unless it's a life or death situation. Even hospitals which won't be struck, like St. Paul Ramsey Medical Center and the Hennepin County Medical Centers, are making plans. Both have established triage procedures where doctors will treat patients based on physical urgency. Minneapolis pollution control officials say that the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad is responsible for PCB-contaminated oil that spilled from electrical transformers that has abandoned South Minneapolis yards. The company will be cited today for improper chemical storage. Officials say the responsibility for the chemicals cannot be transferred, even though the yards have reportedly been sold to Hennepin County for use as a possible light rail route into Minnetonka. About 400 gallons of oil spilled from transformers that were knocked over Monday by 3 men who were allegedly trying to steal them. The spill contaminated the soil. And the Wisconsin Attorney General is expected to file suit today to prevent more dumping of Twin Cities sewage into the Mississippi River. Wisconsin DNR officials say that the raw waste threatened fish and wildlife downstream, as well as recreational areas. PCA officials are not commenting on the lawsuit. The discharges are sanctioned by that agency. All 13 pipe bombs found in the Twin Cities in Minnesota and Wisconsin over the weekend are being analyzed in a crime lab in Washington, D.C. There are still no leads in the investigation. Some connection between the cities and the reason for the bombs were being planted, where they were, remain unclear. The FBI is trying to come up with a psychological profile of the bomber. The murder suspect in last weekend's shotgun slings in St. Paul has been released by police. The bodies of Carolyn Foster and Kenneth Veal were found Sunday in Foster's St. Paul apartment. A search of the suspect's apartment uncovered no evidence linking him to the crime. The Ramsey County Attorney's Office continues to investigate the case. And still to come on the Noon Report, Norman Mastrian says that he was the victim of perjury. Dave Nimmer continues his series when we come back.
It's happening today. Levitt's Big 6-Hour Sale. Save 15 to 50% off famous name brand furniture. That's 6 hours, 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. today. Don't miss it.
You know, this kills me. This new eyeworks place says that you can get a complete eye exam and new glasses in only a few hours. What's the big hurry? They say they have over 4,000 different frames. How many does a person need? And this really kills me. They say they got a computer that figures out which frames look best on your face. What's so hard about that? I picked these.
Come to the eyeworks. Now there's a better way to take care of your eyes.
You gotta work out. It's tough losing weight. But it's worth it. I'll do it.
Everybody's got a diet right. It doesn't matter who you are. It's gonna be a tough fight. So give yourself the greatest taste.
You know, diet right's salt-free.
That's so important. Salt, sodium.
Diet right's the only salt-free diet cola.
Everybody's got a diet right.
I'm interested in salt, too.
I don't know what check it. Hey, Cookie, more pecani sauce. Yeah. This ain't paste pecani sauce. What's the difference? Cookie, paste pecani sauce is made in San Antonio with fresh vegetables and spices by people who know what pecani sauce is supposed to taste like.
This stuff's made in New Jersey?
New Jersey?
Get a rope.
Pick up the original pecani sauce. Pick up the pace.
Norman Mastrian was convicted of hiring Carol Thompson's murderer in a case based solely on circumstantial evidence. The prosecution, to the satisfaction of the jury, proved motive, intent, and opportunity. But in his book, Mastrian contends the testimony against him was perjured, and his alibi was ignored. Dave Nimmer and Doug Stone spent 2 weeks with Mastrian, as well as a prosecutor who still doubts his story.
When he set out to write his book some 20 years ago, Norman Mastrian wanted to prove his innocence in the murder of Carol Thompson. That subject is always with him, even when he isn't writing. And what rankles and frustrates Mastrian the most is the way, he says, the state convicted him. It was the testimony of these 5 men, most of them small-time hoods and police characters, who pinned the murder on Mastrian. They say he went shopping for a killer and that this man, Dick W.C. Anderson, finally took the contract. Mastrian said he never knew 4 of the 5 men and that police helped them put together their almost identical testimony.
To paint me as the fellow who did these foolish clown-like acts would to give me the intellect of a spittle-drooling moron.
The key prosecution witness, Anderson, was the most rehearsed of all, say Mastrian and his lawyer, John Cochran. Cochran recalls cross-examining Anderson and telling him to recite his story, but starting in the middle.
Mr. Anderson leaned back in his chair and started to talk to himself and went through for a period of almost 2.5 minutes by the clock and then sat up and commenced his tale again. Obviously, a tale learned by rote.
Bill Randall, then Ramsey County attorney, has another reason, a simple reason, for the assuredness and similarity of the testimony.
All I can say about that is that Norman must have given each of them the same pitch.
There's more damning testimony, says Randall, that Mastrian's attorneys could never explain away.
You see, Norman has another problem, as far as I'm concerned, in establishing that he was not involved. He received from the victim's husband 25 $100 bills.
That was my money being returned to me. I paid Thompson that money as a retainer to pursue a lawsuit for me. He didn't pursue the lawsuit, gave up his law practice and returned it to me through an attorney who didn't have to pay me in cash. Could have deposited the money in his account and gave me a check. That was his decision, not mine.
The cash and the testimony of the burglars were important, but the linchpin of the state's case involved Mastrian's whereabouts on the evening of March the 4th, 2 days before Carol Thompson was murdered. Anderson testified that he and Mastrian were together in a car that evening, that the two of them drove to the Thompson house in St. Paul and then returned to Minneapolis. And at one point, Anderson says, Mastrian reached under the front seat and produced a length of rubber hose. And he handed it to Anderson and said that was to be used to stun Carol Thompson before he tried to drown her in a bathtub. The two finally parted here at the corner of Hennepin and Lake Street, but not before Mastrian went into a drugstore on the corner, bought a pair of surgical gloves, and gave them to Anderson. The understanding was that Anderson would wear them when he killed Carol Thompson. Mastrian knew that bit of testimony was cold-blooded enough to influence a jury, but he had an alibi. He claims he was at a friend's house in Champlin, and one of his lawyers found 3 witnesses to testify to that effect.
Having investigated that aspect, I am totally, unequivocally convinced of the veracity of those people.
The jury disagreed, and one of the reasons Mastrian muses over in his book is a poor closing argument from his lawyer, John Cochran.
He's one hell of a lawyer, and he did a magnificent job during the body of the trial. But towards the end of the trial, I found him with liquor on his breath more often than not. And on the last day, the day of our final argument, God, his breath reeked.
Mr. Mastrian is entitled to his opinion. I was neither sick nor I was drunk. I simply think that we have a difference of opinion.
A difference of opinion. That seems to be what we're left with 21 years after the fact, after the murder.
In the next part of our series, we'll deal with the consequences, 20 years in prison for Norman Mastrian. The recovering U.S. economy and the strong dollar are having some negative consequences for the foreign trade deficit. Government figures released today show the nation's merchandise trade deficit at $12.2 billion in April, the 4th straight monthly record. And for the 3rd time in 4 months, sales of new single-family homes have declined. New houses sold last month at an annual rate down more than 30,000 from March. From Wall Street at noon today, stock averages generally down. Industrials down about 8 2/3 points. Transportation issues down about 2 1/3, and utilities down 1/3 of a point. 3 out of 6 Republic Airlines unions have accepted a wage concessions package in order to help the airline out of financial problems. The Mechanics Union agreed to accept the concessions yesterday, extending wage cuts that would have expired at the end of the month. Talks with other unions continue this week. Debbie?
Those brush fires continue to burn today near Los Angeles. Right now, firefighters say they hope to put the blaze out by tomorrow night. About 2,100 acres of brushland have been lost to the fire 35 miles east of Los Angeles. Contrast the flames in L.A. to the gallons of water flooding the streets of Miami. More than 7 inches of rain fell on the city already, and it's still raining. Miami residents say it's pretty hard to walk the dog in all that rain. And still to come on the Noon Report, more of the eclipse from the university, and Bud with the latest forecast.
The difference between this silage and this silage treated with Pioneer brand 1177 silage inoculant is this silage smells better, unloads easier, it's less likely to overheat or spoil, it's more nutritious, and cows like the way it tastes. To get silage this good coming out of your silo, treat it with Pioneer 1177 going in. Talk to your Pioneer sales representative.
Bigger yields from your silo with help from Pioneer.
Steak lovers,
beware. Someone might snitch all your Heinz 57 sauce for her recipes. Well, here's my kind of recipe. Thick, rich, Heinz 57 sauce on a big, juicy T-bone. Love the way those savory spices surround a piece of steak. Why keep all this flavor just for recipes?
He'll eat those words.
Yes. Heinz 57 sauce, the recipe for savory steak and chicken and ground beef and...
Honey, Land O'Lakes has come up with a butter idea.
You mean better idea?
No, I mean a butter idea. They call it Country Morning Blend. They blend 40% Land O'Lakes sweet cream butter with pure corn oil. It really tastes like butter. Plus, it has the natural lightness of corn oil.
That sounds better to me.
And it costs less than butter.
It's getting butter all the time. I mean better. I mean butter.
Land O'Lakes Country Morning Blend. Now in tubs.
If you're looking for a show with plenty to say, turn your set to Breakaway. Breakaway to the brightest stars and the celebrities. Breakaway for entertainment and information from people, places, and things. Breakaway for the latest news, plus investigations, gossip, and just plain fun. For a show that's different in every way, Breakaway with Martha Lambert and Norman Mark.
It's a tough job, but somebody has to do it. Right, guys?
Yeah. Weekday afternoons at 4 on WCCO television.
We're going to go to the Bud at the university. How would you rank that eclipse? Hello, Bud.
Yes, okay. Sorry, I'm a little late in talking to you. There's a little demonstration going on in front of Kaufman Union. It's the students told me this is Sister Pat, who appears out here quite regularly to talk to the students on religious matters. Well, we're on location today at the University of Minnesota in front of Kaufman Union. The occasion, we've been watching the progress of the solar eclipse in disguise of one of the older students out here today. We've drawn quite a crowd around in front of Kaufman Union. What a beautiful place to talk about the weather. Well, we've got some little tidbits to mention about the weather today. Obviously, well, you can see, can't you? It's a nice sunny day. Our temperature is at 67 degrees, and we checked the humidity. That's at 33%. The wind is from the south at 9 miles an hour, and the barometric pressure is at 30.19, and the pressure is falling. Well, we've been very fortunate, really, across the country today. It's been mostly a sunny day, and obviously a very sunny day through the 5-state area. And from my vantage point in North Dakota, we're kind of looking over the 5-state area, and from Rapid City to Green Bay, it is sunny. There were a few clouds early morning around International Falls, and a few showers there, but we're forecasting a sunny day in the afternoon temperature at 75 in the Twin Cities, and it's 67 right now. Early morning temperatures over the 5-state area range from the 30s on the eastern side of the area through the 40s in the center and the 50s in the western part of the Dakotas. 42 has been our minimum for the Twin Cities area today so far, and 33 was below this morning at Hibbing. But 35 cities from Missouri to Ohio, from Louisiana to Texas, either set or tied minimum temperature records this morning. So quite a bit of the area was cool. And in alphabetical order, all the way from Apalachicola, Florida, to Waco, Texas. Temperatures there were in the 50s. One of the cooler spots at Rockford, Illinois, where it was 34 degrees this morning. Here's our forecast for the day. Well, we've got two cold fronts to talk about. One is in the Pacific Northwest, where there are a few showers now scattered from eastern Washington, Idaho, into the western part of Montana. And there are showers all along that cold front that you see. Showers off the Florida coast, along the Carolina coast, and covering most of Maine. We've had showers and thunderstorms soaking most of the Atlantic coast overnight and early morning. 3 to 5 inches of rain in parts of New Hampshire, just to give you some instances here. A flood warning for the southern part of Vermont. There's been rain in New York and the Catskills and the Hudson Valley and the flooding problems there. Atlantic City, New Jersey, 1.5 inches of rain and 1 inch of rain at New York City. Here are some temperatures for the afternoon. It's been a sunny day at Atlanta, where they had almost a total solar eclipse. 68 forecast there, 65 at Portland, another city in the 60s, Austin at 82, Denver at 90, and 57 forecast at Detroit. Our forecast for the metro area, mostly sunny this afternoon with the afternoon temperature at 75, southwest winds at 10 to 20. It'll be clear tonight with the evening temperature at 50. And the forecast for tomorrow, we've been talking about 80s. Forecast for tomorrow is for partly cloudy with the afternoon temperature at 80 degrees. So 75 forecast for the afternoon and 80 for tomorrow. And we're going to have to leave the demonstration here, I guess, in front of Kaufman Union, and Sister Pat is still talking to the crowd.
Can't imagine anyone's demonstrating against that forecast, can you, Bill?
It looks like a typical fraternity pledge, doesn't it? Our Bud Kraehling. You know, that strike in Las Vegas is causing all sorts of problems for hotel and casino owners, and also for magicians. Last night, a magic show at the Frontier Hotel had to be canceled because of rumors that strikers would reveal all the secrets of Siegfried and Roy and how they perform their various illusions. The magicians refused to take that chance. Coming up on the Noon Report, Reggie's home run beats the Yankees again, and rain beats the Twins in Boston. Tony Parker is next.
I've got my health and a comfortable home and 7 adorable grandchildren. There's Tommy and Harry and Julie and John and Michael and Stephen and Tim. Where's Timmy? Now that I've signed up with Cher Senior Care, there's only one thing left for me to worry about. Timmy. Oh, where is Timmy?
Compare Medicare supplements and you'll choose Cher Senior Care because there's so much more to share.
Well, a hoop-dee-doo, here's a brand new scoop. New Oreo cookies and cream. You can't get enough of this heavenly stuff. New Oreo cookies and cream. We crunch those cookies in a dream ice cream. Just everybody drooling. Yes, indeed. US of A, it's your lucky day. New Oreo cookies and cream.
On a stick and sandwiches, too.
Does Spock live? Star Trek fans eagerly await the opening of Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. Wednesday on PM Magazine, director Leonard Nimoy may give us a clue. Then, take a look at swank New York rental properties that command top dollar. Steve Doyle takes you behind the scenes of Duluth's landmark aerial lift bridge and see 12 young women transformed into dazzling Las Vegas cigarette vendors on PM Magazine, Wednesday at 6:30 on Channel 4.
Well, the combination of Reggie Jackson's home run swing and rain in Boston cost the Twins another half game in the American League's West Division race. The Twins are leading Boston 5-0 after 4 innings when the game was canceled after an hour and 40-minute delay. Some great play, but the Twins washed out. Kent Herbeck put the Twins ahead 2-0 here with his 7th homer of the season in the bottom of the first, but it won't go in the record book. In the top of the first, Tim Tuffelett ended a Boston threat with a great catch and a double play toss to second base. And Frank Viola was off to a tremendous start. In 4 innings, Frank had struck out 8, allowed just 1 hit. Pre-game ceremonies, delaying tactics by the Red Sox, and the TV delay all contributed to that washout. Now, it was still raining in the Boston area this morning. They'll try to play Game 3 of the series tonight, but the 2 postponements will be made up at later dates. California's 6-5 win over the Yankees in Anaheim increased the Angels' first-place lead to a 1.5 games over the Twins. Reggie Jackson's 2nd homer in as many games was the game winner. His solo blast, number 9 for the season, gave California a 6-1 lead, but 3 homers in the 7th by Don Mattingly, Don Baylor, and Dave Winfield turned it into a cliffhanger before the Angels managed to hang on to take a 1-run decision. It was the 7th loss in the last 10 games for the Yankees. Well, a serious lack of rapport between Coach Bill Mahoney and the North Star players has developed into a full-blown revolt, and apparently has extended the front office and General Manager Lou Nanne. Veterans Al McAdam and Dino Cicerelli have demanded to be traded because of differences with the coach. Nanne says he will oblige both players, threatening in the meanwhile to banish Cicerelli to the lowly New Jersey Devils. Other players who declined to be identified blame part of the trouble on interference by the front office in matters which they say belong between the coach and the player. Nanne says Mahoney will stay. And, you know, if they're looking for a new coach for the North Stars, Pat Quinn was one they might have gotten, but he signed with the L.A. Kings. The North Stars need a Pat Quinn, I think, but he's tough, and he wouldn't broach any meddling from the front office.
How serious is that whole matter?
I think it's very serious, and it's one that's been going on for a long time to a number of coaches that has to be settled one way or the other.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Debbie?
Finally today, it seems singer Boy George got a royal snub last night from Princess Margret. British newspapers say the princess tried to ignore the singer and refused to be photographed at a photograph with him at an award ceremony in Britain. The princess did shake hands with him, but called him an over-made-up tart. Boy George stormed off in a huff, saying that he didn't want to talk to her anyway, and it was up to her if she didn't want to talk to a peasant. The singer was difficult to ignore in a pink dress and a cashmere coat.
I think she's got the upper hand in that situation. Thank you for being with us today. Be with us once again tomorrow, if you will.
Now there's a choice in the land. Now there's hard ice cream at Dairy Queen. Choose luscious strawberry, rich chocolate, and more. Your favorite flavors in an ice cream as good as any you ever tasted. Now there's Queen's Choice ice cream in the land. The choice is yours at your Dairy Queen store.
In the land of Dairy Queen, we treat you right.
I just discovered something great. A new maxi pad that works in such a different way. It's called Always. Let me tell you why Always is so different. Every pad is covered with a special material they call dry weave. It's this material that helps give me a drier kind of protection. I actually feel drier with Always, and I like that. But read the package. You'll see exactly why Always is so terrific. It'll tell you how Always helps keep you dry in a way you've never known.
New Always, a drier kind of protection that simply didn't exist until now. In maxis, minis, and panty liners.
Between you and me, I'm surprised someone didn't think of it sooner.
Freedom, the greatest gift your country gives. Help preserve it by taking stock in America. Buy United States Savings Bonds.
WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul.